Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is it was supposed to be simple in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 6, Things Get Really Off the Rails. So, Aelfric was a creep. Oh sure, the man gave the appearance of a nice, kind-hearted shepherd, but he also dressed nearly as evilly as Hubert. Also, referring to people as a flock was weird. Referring to people as a flock is weird, right? Byleth asked Geralt as Rhea talked with Aelfric. He wasn't like this the last time I met him. How was he then? I'm really not drunk enough to deal with these memories, Geralt muttered. Hello there, you must be Citri's daughter, said the creepy guy. Byleth knew she wasn't being charitable considering they just met, but also this guy just felt wrong to her. You know my mom? She asked with some skepticism. Of course I do, she was a dear friend. I was even at her and Geralt's wedding. Isn't that right? He asked her dad. Yeah. Blinking, Byleth began to look between the two of them. With how uncomfortable Geralt looked and with how wistful Aelfric looked. Oh. Were you in love with my mom? Excuse me? Kid, don't just say stuff like that to people, Geralt chided. I'm right though. It's really obvious. Well, you're certainly more lively than your mother, Aelfric commented, and Byleth immediately frowned. I don't appreciate you joking about my mom being dead. Wah, no, that wasn't a joke, you're very expressive, that's what I meant to say. Byleth crossed her arms over her chest, scowling. Well, excuse me for having emotions. That is, I didn't mean. Why don't we all try to calm down? Geralt said, clearly not wanting to continue this line of conversation. Yes, why don't we get to why you three are down here? A bit awkward, Aelfric faced Byleth. Rhea told me you know where the Chalice of Beginnings is. I do. She does. Rhea stepped in. Thanks to the blessing the goddess has given her, she has received knowledge of what is yet to come. Oh, yeah, I have, that. And that is why I know exactly where this chalice thing is. Byleth nodded. Rhea, tell them the thing I told you. About the chalice. Oh? And you can't tell us yourself? Yuri asked with a far too smug smile on his pretty face. I can't, because I'm not the Archbishop. Rhea's the Archbishop, so she should tell you. But doesn't it make more sense for you to tell us given that you're not the Archbishop? Unless you're trying to say you're more important than she is. I would never say that, I just don't think it's my place to tell you guys what to do. Byleth said, really hoping someone would step in to help her as she didn't know how to handle Yuri without immediately jumping to violence. Come now children, let's not fight, Rhea intervened, she has already informed me of how to get to the chalice, so I can lead the way. Well, if the Archbishop says so, I guess I can't argue. I hope all goes well on your trip. Aelfric said with a smile. You're not coming. I'm afraid I can't. The people of Abyss need someone to take care of them, and without the Ashen Wolves, its defense is far too low. Worry not Aelfric, we won't be gone for long. Constance boasted. I mean, I wouldn't mind staying behind, these guys seem like they can handle things on their own, Happy muttered. Hey, does retrieving an ancient relic come with a reward? Kinda been hearing about some debt collectors showing up nearby, so I wouldn't mind getting some cash, Balthus said. Byleth wasn't sure if she was happy these four weren't in her class or not. Regardless, off they went, with Aelfric staying behind, waving them off as they started their trek. As they walked, Byleth couldn't help but stare at the four wolves. So, what's wrong with you four? Kid, you really need to learn some tact. You're supposed to say what's up with you four, Geralt corrected. Knowing what I know about the students of the Academy, what I said still works. Where did you find this girl, Lady Rhea? Happy asked. The goddess sent her on a mission to meet me, Rhea said, not completely lying there. I'm also her sort of granddaughter, Byleth answered. Whoa, what? Lady Rhea's a mom? Balthus asked, looking to the Archbishop, who was trying her best not to sigh. She's a grandma, B, of course that means she's a mom, Happy said, weren't you listening to the weird girl? I'm not that weird. Rhea kept herself composed, even if it was increasingly difficult. To be clear, Citrai was like a daughter to me. I did not give birth to her. Oh, that makes more sense, Balthus said with a nod. Was she hot? Balthus. Constance gasped. What? It's an honest question, Balthus said, completely ignoring the unamused stares he was getting from Rhea and Geralt. I never met her, Byleth said as they continued walking. Perhaps we can save this talk for another time. Rhea requested. We are almost to where the chalice is hidden. Speaking of, how exactly are we going to obtain the chalice? Constance inquired, focusing on the subject at hand. If this really is a legendary relic, then would it not be hidden behind some form of magic protection? That is correct. The chalice was supposedly sealed by the 4 apostles when the Rite of Rising failed. Even so, I'm sure the goddess will bless us with the chalice. Speaking of, Byleth echoed, what exactly do we do when we find the chalice? Do I drink from it? Why would you drink from it? Yuri asked. As she was blessed by the goddess, it is highly likely that coming in contact with a relic of great power would be a great boon for Byleth here, Rhea said, getting really good at lying on the spot. Though, to be specific, the chalice is meant to hold the blood of the 4 apostles while the rite is held to revive someone. I'm supposed to drink blood. And no, my child. Well, when you think about it, if the chalice is supposed to revive someone, they likely can't drink it beforehand. Perhaps it is poured on them. Yuri guessed, a bit mockingly towards Byleth. Oh, I can do that, I'm used to getting soaked in blood. Are you okay? Surprisingly, it was Happy who asked this. No, but as long as the blood isn't from anyone I care about again, I'll be good. And hey, as long as everything goes well, I won't have to kill anyone I like. What she means to say is that the knowledge that the goddess gave her was of a tragedy she needs to avoid. So it wasn't exactly pretty, Geralt said, coming in for the save. I see, why would your future self kill people you like? I've been asking myself that too, and I don't have any good answers. Silence fell on the group after that. At least until Byleth decided to break it like an Agarthan spine over her knee. So hey, what exactly is the Abyss about? Didn't get an actual explanation there. Abyss is a place for people seeking refuge when they can't find it above ground, Yuri started to explain. Yeah, they can be anything from shunned nobility, merchants trying to hide after a bad deal, or even someone like me, who has way too many bounty hunters and debt collectors coming after me. Byleth couldn't help but notice Constance bristling at Balthus's first example. Aelfric was actually the one who asked for the Abyss to be opened for those seeking refuge, Rhea said, glancing at the wolves. He was also the one who asked for the Ashen Wolves to become the 4th house of the Academy. Huh. So what do you guys learn about down here? Oh, it's not an actual classroom or anything, Happy explained. Elfie sometimes talks about some sermons, but he's not really a teacher. Yes, for the most part the Ashen Wolves are in charge of defending Abyss, Yuri further elaborated. Many of its residents, be it children, elderly, or just those who never learned to fight for themselves, need our protection. Huh, okay, starting to see why you guys stayed underground during the war. Is that more of that future knowledge you prattle on about? Constance asked as she walked by Byleth. If you truly are a soothsayer like you proclaim to be, then tell me, does House Novelli regain its standing in the Empire? You're from the Empire. Of course. I, Constance von Novelli, am from the glorious House Novelli. And though it has come to ruin, I swear that I shall reclaim its honor. Novelli, right, that's the house that tried to defend against the Doddens and Brigidians. That was an annoying lesson to teach. Hubert kept trying to intimidate me, and Bernadetta thought Petra was going to have revenge for her people. Also it didn't help that it was the first lesson Lysithea joined in on, so she kept trying to speak up and answer so she could show how mature she was. Byleth rambled on, getting lost in her memories. Excuse me, I asked you a question. Oh, honestly, I don't know. Kinda didn't keep track of anything after the war, so not sure if you showed up or not. Humph, is that so? I suppose that means I must simply redouble my efforts. For nothing will be able to defeat me. Oh ho ho ho. Byleth wasn't really sure why she was laughing, but thankfully she found something else to get everyone's attention. "Hey, looks like the path leads out there," she said, pointing towards where the tunnel ended, light seemingly coming in from outside. Walking ahead, Byleth soon exited the tunnel and found herself in a ravine. "Huh? Did we take a wrong turn?" Happy asked, looking around. "Is that the bridge?" Byleth asked, staring up at what appeared to be the bridge leading to the cathedral. It seems that we have certainly been traveling quite down for some time to be this far under the bridge," Ria said, staring up as well. "You know, if I'm being honest, I always thought there was just like an endless pit down here." Byleth admitted with no prompting. "You know, you speak quite easily," Yuri noted with some amusement. "It's hard trying to keep thoughts to myself when I have to deal with emotions now. But I can deal with that later, chalice first." "Yes, the chalice must be found post-haste. Tally forth, my comrades." Constance cheered on, from the tunnel, for some reason. "Why are you still in there?" "To protect our means of return, of course." With a nod, Byleth walked back so she could drag Constance out. Hey, what are you doing?" Constance asked, trying to pull away from Byleth, only for her to stop struggling the instant she was pulled out into the sunlight. "My apologies for making someone like you have to defile their hands by grabbing me." "Oh, don't worry, nothing about me is worth defiling." "Oh goddess, there's two of them," Balthus muttered in audible horror as Yuri chuckled. "Your words aside, that's just how Constance is when out in the sun. Hence why she lives in Abyss." "Oh." With another nod, Byleth placed her hands on Constance's shoulders to guide her back to the tunnel. "There is no need for you to waste dash, why do you have your hands on me? You're not good with the sun, right? You can stay here." "You know if she stays behind there will be less people to help with the search," Yuri pointed out. Despite her quirks, Constance is quite useful when it comes to searching for something like a magical binding. "Yeah, Coco's pretty handy even when she's mopey," Happy commented, prompting Constance to preen again. "Indeed, my brilliance shines through no matter my mood." "You have nothing to fear so long as I am here," she declared while stepping forward into the light. "Oh ho 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 yig, my apologies for disgracing your ears with something as atrocious as my hideous laughter." "I'm going to buy you a parasol," Byleth decided. "Please do not waste your money on someone as worthless as me." "I'm going to," Byleth said, before dragging Constance around by the hand. "Not that I'm complaining, but I gotta say, you're acting pretty differently now than you did with everyone else. Less aggressive, for one," Geralt noted. "My apologies for making your daughter act unlike herself." "I don't know them," Byleth answered, prompting Geralt to raise an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Nodding again, Byleth went on ahead, dragging along Constance as the latter kept demeaning herself. "Do you know what she means?" Ria asked, as she walked behind the wolves and alongside Geralt. "My best guess is that since she never saw these four in her visions, she might not have the same hang-ups she does with everyone from the church. Probably isn't on guard because she doesn't feel like she failed them." "You say that, and yet, somehow, I feel like I was the one who failed her." "Well, whatever happened, is something we won't know, and all we can do is help her now. I'm sorry I wasn't able to save Citrai." Geralt sighed. "Yeah," Byleth explained what happened. "She said you told her everything, and I don't blame you. Maybe I would have, ages ago, but I've been having a crazy few weeks. You never realize how much you get used to your own image of a person until they suddenly start acting completely differently." "And how did Byleth used to act?" "She's always been quiet. Quiet as a baby, quiet as a kid, and quiet as an adult. She never showed much emotion, if any at all, but I got used to that. Even with how inexpressive she was, I could tell if she was upset or if something made her happy, and now, she's showing more emotion than I ever could have expected, and it's because she went through hell. But she is still marching on, so that should tell you that you raised a fine, strong daughter. Stronger than me at least. If I was in her shoes, I would have drunken myself into a stupor. You certainly seem like you need a drink. I know you prefer ales, but perhaps I can offer you some wine? I do have access to quite the selection. You know, despite all the time I spent serving you, I never took you for a drinker." An archbishop has an image to maintain, no? Rhea asked in amusement. Though before they could continue their conversation, a loud mechanical sound caught the attention of everyone there as a large golem began to approach and phantom soldiers started to appear. Give me a moment, I'll deal with this. Walking forward, Rhea moved past the younger fighters, who had begun to enter their combat stances, and raised her hand as a sigil began to form. And just as quickly as a fight seemed like it would break out, so did it stop as the golem she had named after Marcel went limp. How did you do that? Happy asked, a bit surprised. In ages long ago, the church used golems like these to defend sacred areas. They also made a spell to turn them off if need be. And here I was, hoping for a fight, Balthus complained, been itching for a fight all day. We can spar later, Byleth offered. Now you're speaking my language, future girl, Balthus said, grinning. Hey, question, so are you actually from the future? Both Rhea and Gerald stiffened at the question. Yes. And it only got worse with her answer. Wait, really? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't believe her, Balthus, but I think our friend here might not be the most stable. The term med-prophet comes to mind, Yuri noted. Perhaps it is my presence that is causing her to act like this. My foul magical experiments have gone too far. After a moment of staring at Constance, Byleth looked at Happy. Are you the only normal one? Good one, Chatterbox. Children, while I would hate to interrupt you, we do have a chalice to find, Rhea said, having retrieved the key from the golem Marcel. Make sure not to wander off too far while searching, in case another golem gets activated. Thankfully, after some timely saves by Rhea as she deactivated more golems, the group soon found where the key should properly go. After turning it, a glow caught the eye of everyone there as 4 crests appeared on a wall, before a hole opened before them. Is that my crest? Byleth heard Constance ask herself, before quickly glancing around and noting that the wolves were all staring at different crests. Is this it? Geralt asked, after having reached into the hole to pull out a chalice. It really is the chalice of beginnings. Rhea said, approaching to take it. It has lost much of its power, but it is unmistakably a great relic. So, now what? Yuri asked. Turning around, Rhea faced Byleth, and began to walk towards her. Now, you hand over the chalice. A new voice said, screaming out towards the group. Turning in shock, they looked to see a group of bandits, one of who was holding Aelfric, a knife to his throat. Aelfric. The Ashen Wolves were all shocked to see their caretaker captured. Byleth, meanwhile, couldn't help but stare at the lead bandit, wondering why he seemed familiar. I am sorry, my flock, I couldn't handle them myself. Unhand that man. Holding a cardinal hostage will not end well for you. Rhea's threat probably would have held better if she didn't have to reach over to stop Byleth from blasting the whole group with a fireball. Then hand over the chalice, and maybe I won't slaughter all of you. The man threatened back as his knife dug into Aelfric's neck. A sudden rush of memories filled Byleth as she remembered the day she and Edelgard went down different paths. You. From the outside, it appeared as if Byleth had suddenly disappeared and appeared where the bandit leader was, the latter flying backwards after getting punched. In reality, Byleth learned just how useful time stopping can be. What was that? Methode yelled, now that Byleth remembered his name. The bandit flinched as he stared up at Byleth's eyes, boring into him while she slowly drew her blade. Get her! At their boss' command, the bandits charged her, only for several of them to suddenly fall forward, gashes of blood spewing from them as they were cut down. What are you? Methode demanded, quickly realizing this job wasn't worth the pay. Someone who is dealing with her rage. And an awkward amount of time began to pass as she stood there, the green-haired girl blinking as if something that should have happened didn't. Only 3 times a day? Guess it has its limits like the divine pulse. What are you Methode's words were cut short as her blade buried herself in his chest. Shame, I won't be able to take my time with this. Looking on from a distance, Rhea could only stare in horror as Byleth began stabbing the bandit, her blade plunging in far too eagerly over and over again. For a brief moment, she saw a vision of herself stabbing into Nemesis. What did my future self do? She murmured to herself. Lady Rhea. She shook herself from her memories and looked at Aelfric, who had a look of concern on his face. You should go to her. Here, I will hold the chalice. Yes, of course. Thank you. She handed it to him and turned towards Byleth again. The girl still hadn't stopped hacking at the body. What the man had done, she did not know, but the look of rage in the girl's eyes was far too familiar. To see that rage turn towards her when she put a hand on the girl's shoulder only steeled her resolve. Byleth, child. Please. He is already dead. Ah. Yeah, I guess he is. She stood, blood still dripping down her blade. May I ask what this man did in the future to deserve your fury? Him? He was there. He was there in the holy tomb, when everything went wrong. Her grip on the sword tightened. He didn't do anything to me specifically, he was there. The man was no nemesis then. But, in a way, Rhea could still see the parallel. He wasn't the monster orchestrating a massacre, but he was one of the eager participants. It was enough for Rhea to pull Byleth into a hug. And true to her earlier promise, she could hear Byleth's breath hitch before a sob slipped out. If she were allowed to, she would have held the poor child there as long as she needed until she wept out every bit of grief that filled her heart. But she wasn't. What? It was Constance's voice that caught her attention, the young woman's dour tone taking on an air of surprise when a group of mages suddenly appeared in the midst of the Ashen Wolves. For a brief moment, Rhea felt her heart break as yet another human broke her trust. She really had hoped her misgivings about Aelfric were mere paranoia. Then Yuri acted his part as the traitor, drawing his sword and swinging it at Geralt, the only one in their midst not held by the mage's magic. From what she could tell, he said something to convince Geralt to play along, given how her former captain faked a fall, yet. And then she felt a sudden, burning heat at her side as a scream of pure anguish spilled from Byleth's open mouth. Wait, child. The many centuries she had lived hadn't dulled Rhea's strength in the slightest, yet she found she couldn't keep her hold on Byleth at all as the young woman ripped free from her grasp and tore across the field. One unfortunate mage happened to be closer than Yuri, which was likely the reason why she cleaved him apart in one vicious swing instead of the Ashen Wolves' leader. Oh shit, Yuri muttered, before looking to the treacherous cardinal, Aelfric, do it now or she'll kill all of us. Byleth howled in rage at the sound of his voice, before stiffening as her father suddenly rose to his feet. Kid. It's okay. I'm okay. Huh. And as Byleth stared at her father, alive and unharmed, Aelfric, and the Ashen Wolves, along with two surviving but visibly shaken mages, vanished in a flash of magic. Not that Byleth was paying them any mind. Why, you're alive. I am. It's okay. That kid, Yuri, asked me to. He didn't get a chance to finish before his daughter was hugging him, her face buried in his chest as she fully and freely sobbed. It's okay, kid. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. She didn't answer him. She couldn't really. She just clutched him tighter, unwilling to let him go for even a second. She couldn't lose him. Not again. Chapter 7, That was a bad plan. That was a terrible plan, Geralt said, frowning at Rhea. Who, to her credit, did look very contrite. I did not expect Byleth to, well. She glanced at the girl still pressed to her father's side, who gave her a glare in a response that made the Archbishop wince. Yeah, that part was bad, but aside from accidentally traumatizing my daughter again, that earned another wince. Which I can't completely blame you for because I did go along with pretending that sloppy swing hit me. Why in the world did you decide to hand the chalice over to Aelfric? She sighed. A desire to believe the best in others. His look was flat enough to set plates on it. I really was hoping Aelfric wasn't going to do as he did. At the very least, I hoped he would not be willing to use Byleth's distress as a way to carry out his plans, but... Geralt sighed. This is why I don't like complicated schemes. One thing goes wrong and the whole plan falls apart. I did have a contingency in place. There is a reason Yuri, well, you recall what he did well enough. She cleared her throat, trying to ignore how Byleth was still glaring at her. He has been acting as my agent in these matters, and allowing Aelfric to enact parts of his plan in order to catch him was considered acceptable. That's stupid. You're stupid. Rhea frowned at Byleth's blunt statement. Don't let the enemy get their objective. Do you even know what his plan is? Well, there are only so many things you can use the chalice for. Byleth finally moved away from her father with an irritated frown. Where would he be going? Hey, Byleth. She frowned up at her dad. I'm going to kill him. Kid, I realize things got out of control here, and I don't disagree that Rhea made some bad choices, and don't start, we both know handing him the chalice was a bad decision. Rhea huffed. Pardon me for wanting to comfort your daughter then. Leave it. Anyway, Aelfric's not some terrible monster. He was a decent man. Lots of people are decent until they're not. I'm going to rip his head off. She paused, a frown coming to her face. Where's Mom buried again? What? It's on the monastery grounds, I remember that, I visited, right, I need to focus. The chalice can resurrect people, he's in love with Mom, he would want to get her from where she's buried, why did you wince? Rhea tried to school her features. I do not know what you mean. Rhea. Why did you wince? Citrai may not actually be buried at that grave. What? Yeah, I'm with the kid, what? Rhea glanced between Byleth and Geralt, then let out a sigh. Could we discuss it while we alert the knights to the issue? Okay, so I'm not too mad about the idea you decided to have Citrai entombed instead of buried, Geralt said as he walked with Rhea, Byleth, and a whole lot of knights, but can we just agree that it was wrong of you to lie about her being buried? What in the world happened while you were down in Abyss? Eloise asked in audible confusion while Rhea sighed. Is this really a conversation we should be having right now? Look, I get it, you didn't want to bury your daughter, someone you saw as your daughter, Geralt corrected himself, mostly because he didn't want to start up that whole Byleth thinks Rhea is her grandma thing again. But you should have at least told me. You were not here. You haven't been here until today. I didn't have a chance to lie to you because you weren't around to be lied to. Okay, but you admit you would have lied to me about this. Can we stop talking about this? Byleth requested, I just want to find and murder Aelfric. Wait, is that what we're doing? Eloise asked, prompting a sigh from Catherine, who was also here. Really, there were a lot of knights gathered at the moment, most of whom Byleth neither knew nor cared about, which really just meant there were more knights than necessary. Yes, we're doing that, that's why we're going to the, what's it called, she asked, glancing at Rhea. The Holy Mausoleum. Why does this place have so many holy places for dead people? No, stupid question, never mind. Oh? And how do we know these scoundrels have taken refuge in the mausoleum? Eloise asked. The more we say that word, the less it sounds like a word, Byleth commented, before pointing up at the cathedral's roof, also because of that, apparently. There was a giant bird perched on the roof. One that the church's Pegasus Knights were trying to shoo away without much luck. Oh. Well, I don't know how that makes sense, but I'm willing to accept it. Yeah, that's just what I've been doing. So, Lady Rhea, what exactly is the plan? Catherine asked, only for Byleth to answer instead. Shamir and any other ranged knights focus on making sure no one is near the wolves. Catherine, you lead a healer to them to help them if they're injured. Dad, you do the same if they're not in the same location. Eloise and the remaining knights, make sure to cover the entrance so no one can escape, and I'll deal with Aelfric, she said, before pausing. Haven't done that in a while. And why exactly should we listen to you? Because Aelfric wants the wolves for some reason, so getting them out is smart. You and Dad are two of the strongest fighters here, so you can pierce through the defenses quickly while Shamir can make sure no one is threatening the wolves. Byleth blinked. I don't know how to feel that my brain can still do this so easily. And what can I do? Rhea asked, surprising the knights there. If Aelfric is really planning to use the chalice, I want you to focus on trying to stop whatever ritual he's doing. In case I don't kill Aelfric quickly enough, we have to make sure whatever he's doing doesn't work. Oh, what do you specialize in, aside from faith magic anyways? I am quite capable with a sword, Rhea responded with a smile. Lady Rhea, I know you want to punish the Cardinal, but I don't think you should have to get involved. Nonsense, Catherine, it is my fault that Aelfric was able to get this far. It is only right that I make amends for it. At that, Rhea thought for a moment. If he is indeed performing the rite of rising, then there will likely be a vortex of magic near where the wolves are being held. Someone sufficiently skilled with magic will be able to break the spell, so that is something to keep in mind. Thank you, Byleth said, nodding at the information. And in no time at all, the group found themselves descending into the mausoleum, which had been opened by Aelfric, and were greeted by the sight of several soldiers waiting for them, as well as the ashen wolves, injured and being drained of their blood. Knights of Ceros, charge! Rhea commanded. And while they enacted Byleth's plan, the mercenary in question immediately ran forward to attack Aelfric. Hopping over one of his armored knights, Byleth brought her blade down, intending to cut down the Cardinal, only for her blade to catch on an invisible barrier. What are you doing? I am trying to bring back your mother. Don't you want her back? Aelfric demanded to know from Byleth as she kept trying to attack him, her blade unable to strike him at all. My mom gave her life for mine. I'm not going to let you defile her corpse. You don't understand, he shouted back, magic gathering in his hands. Please, if I could only show you what she was like. Excellent, now we must stop the others. Constance's voice was heard over the roar of battle, signaling that one of the vortexes was closed. No, no, stop them, don't let them stop the ritual. Aelfric demanded as he brought his hands to the air, casting his magic as a large sigil appeared in the sky. He's casting meteor, watch out. Byleth warned the others, as she flipped backwards, dodging a spear thrust from a soldier as they tried to strike her blind spot. A large flaming rock formed from the sigil, aiming for Catherine as she approached Balthus. Thankfully, despite all the issues Byleth had with her, Catherine was a skilled combatant, and she was able to dodge the meteor. But as she kept an eye on that, Byleth felt herself get blasted back. Fine. If you insist on getting involved, I'll have to strike you down as well, Aelfric declared, before flinching back as a spear stabbed along the surface of his barrier. What is wrong with you? Geralt roared as he stabbed at his former friend. Citrai gave her life so Byleth could live. How can you think she'd be fine with you killing our daughter? She'll understand. She has to. If I can bring back anyone, everyone. No one will come to harm if you would just let me. You know that's not how it works. Damn it, Aelfric, I don't want to kill you. Then work with me, Geralt. Work with me and we can bring Citrai back. Please, I just want to see her live again. Don't you want your family to be whole? Geralt's eyes narrowed as he grip on his lance tightened. I do. I've always wanted that. But I'm not going to murder kids to do it. You can't keep reaching for what you can't have, Aelfric. Look at what's right in front of you. What you're going to lose if you keep on this path. I can't. For a moment, Aelfric looked stricken. It's the only path I have. I can't stop, Geralt. Not until I see it through. Then allow me to stop you. Aelfric paused, his eyes widening and his head turning just in time to see Rhea's fist racing towards his face. Her knuckles smashed straight into his nose with a brutal crack before he went flying backwards, his barrier failing completely as he crashed to the ground and skidded across the floor of the mausoleum. Rhea let out a slow breath, then eased out of her stance and idly shook her fist out. It's been some time since I've had to do something like that. I can't say I would like to repeat the experience. It was a good punch, Geralt conceded, before immediately looking around. Where's Byleth? Over here, the girl in question said as she returned, not really looking any worse for wear, though Geralt still went right over to her to start checking her over. Hey, I'm fine. You don't need to check. You took a blast to the chest, I'm allowed to be worried. Byleth made a mildly displeased noise, but didn't protest any further as her father checked her over. Rhea, meanwhile, felt her eyes widen as she noticed something familiar in Byleth's hand. Byleth. Yeah. Is that the sword of the Creator? Yeah. Why do you have that? Because I remembered this mausoleum place is where it's kept, so I grabbed it from the coffin. She paused. What's the difference between the mausoleum and the holy tomb? Or are they names for the same place? Child. Why did you steal the sword of the Creator from the coffin of Saint Syros? I just said why. No, you said you remembered it was here. That is not a reason to take it. Yes it is. Rhea sighed. She was lucky she didn't have the same issue as young Happy, or a truly terrible monster would have awoken from her exasperation. I don't see what the problem is. You let me keep it last time, Byleth said without a hint of guilt or deception. Kid, if you wanted a special sword, I still have my old one from when I was the knight captain, Geralt pointed out. Wait, really? Can I have that? I'll trade you. Do not trade the sword of the Creator away for a different sword. Rhea snapped. I can just give you the sword, you can keep both, Geralt whispered while Rhea tried to collect herself. That aside, we should move now to retrieve the chalice and bind Aelfric. Where is Aelfric? The traitorous cardinal was no longer sprawled out on the floor. And neither the chalice nor Citri's body were in the same place either. Oh come on. Byleth complained, I'm so tired of everyone knowing how to warp. Why am I the only one who doesn't know how to do that? I don't know how to either, kid, Geralt commiserated, before looking around. Where the hell would he go? He can't have gotten far, Rhea said, before turning towards her knights, who had quite solidly handled the enemy forces. For once. Knights. Aelfric has escaped. Search for him immediately and apprehend him on sight. As the knights readied themselves to chase after the cardinal, Geralt glanced over at the wolves. What about you kids, how are you feeling? Never better, Yuri answered. In fact, I had heard that bloodletting was an old form of medicine, and I can tell you it's working wonders. Is that so? In that case, I have plenty more to lose. Balthus chimed in. Ugh, what is with you brutes? Constance complained, I cannot understand how you do not feel atrocious right now. As long as we can get this over with, I'm good. Don't worry Happy, we will, Balthus said, but first, boss, you mind coming over here? With a quizzical gaze, Yuri turned to face Balthus, and received a fist across the face. Ack. We can talk about what you did later, just needed to do that first. I suppose that is fair, are you in the mood to hit me as well, my friend? Yuri asked, nursing his cheek as he looked at Byleth. I'm not going to hit you, since I think I might end up killing you, but you're a dick. Ever the eloquent one. I'll make sure to make it up to you later, but for now, we have a shepherd to deal with. With a smile, Yuri led the charge of those still remaining. Within moments, the group were back in the cathedral, faced with the sight of Rhea and her knights surrounding Aelfric as he held the chalice aloft above Citri. Iame has come, please, return to me, Citri. Citri, si-. Was all Byleth heard as a deluge of magic came forth from the chalice, engulfing both him and Citri. And for a brief moment, as the umbral beast rose from where the two were, scattering the knights in an eruption of force, Byleth remembered the sight of a white dragon. Taking a step backwards, all noise was drowned out as Byleth remembered that night, when she left everyone behind. Citri. The beast roared as it swung at Byleth, the claw only missing as she felt herself getting tackled to the side. You fool, do you wish to get yourself killed? Constance yelled at her. The posh girl grabbed her own shoulder, trying to heal her wound. In her hands lay Dorothea, her eyes gazing up towards the sky. Constance blinked as she felt a sudden warmth rush over her. All aches and pains disappeared from her body entirely. Not just the wound on her shoulder, but every bit of weariness she might have felt from the ritual as well. Oh my! I did not realize you were so skilled as a healer. Byleth didn't answer her. Instead, she stood, her hand clenched around the now glowing sword of the Creator. Rather than the desperate or gleeful eyes she had before, Byleth stared with dull green eyes at the umbral beast. With a flick of her wrist, the sword of the Creator extended, wrapping around its leg before it cut straight through. Citri. The beast screamed as the sword extended again, slashing it across the face before it wrapped around its wings, the beast getting yanked down as Byleth raised a hand towards it. Aura. The beast screamed again as rings of light surrounded it. Byleth kept her hand raised. Ragnarok. Fire descended upon it, making it scream even louder. My, skilled with a sword and magic? You're going to make me jealous, Yuri said, coming in as he slashed at its side. Save some of the fun for us. Balthus shouted, jumping up to smash a fist into the beast's face. It sucks Elfie did this to us, but we can at least get this over with, Happy said as she and Constance began to cast a spell together. This is but another step to regaining my family's honor. Constance boasted as their spells clashed together, an explosion ringing as they smashed into the pained beast. Silently staring, Byleth felt a hand on her shoulder, gently moving her back as Geralt walked in front of her. Don't worry kid, I'll handle this. Stepping forward, Geralt brandished his spear as he faced Aelfric. For what it's worth, Citrai did care about you. Rushing forward, Geralt pierced the beast with enough force to send it falling backwards. Citrai! The beast cried out, before Geralt ripped his spear out, finishing it off. As the beast's cries faded away, so did the beast itself until only the chalice and Citrai's body remained. Are you doing okay, kid? Geralt asked, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Papa. Byleth said, in a quiet voice. The room was quieter now. Less people around. Yeah, it's me, he said, a small smile on his face. Blinking, the light began to return to Byleth's eyes as she looked around. Where's Rhea? It looks like Aelfric turning into that beast called several more demonic beasts here. So Rhea and the knights went to deal with them. He decided not to mention just how guilty Rhea looked as she led the knights away. Well, at least they didn't run away, Byleth said, before they were approached by the wolves. Hey, you really know how to throw down. Balthus complimented, looking forward to that fight with you. I'm sure I could have handled that on my own, but I shall thank you for your assistance, Constance said, before throwing her head back in a boisterous laugh. Oh ho ho ho. It was a pain, but thanks for healing Coco, Happy praised, a small smile on her face. You really helped us out, my friend, Yuri praised, I guess I owe you one. Byleth's lips began to twitch. You weren't bad either. Just not bad, huh? Guess I really have to work to earn that approval. Yuri glanced back at the body on the floor and the chalice with it. So, do you two think you might need a moment? Geralt sighed. Thanks, but I'd rather just take her back to, well, where she was entombed, I guess. I assume Rhea had some kind of coffin for her, she wouldn't just leave her out in the open. Byleth wasn't so sure her father should have that much faith in Rhea, but she didn't say anything in favor of moving over to her mother. She looked peaceful, lying there. Like nothing happened at all. Hi Mama, she murmured softly, it's nice to meet you. Well, looks like she might need that moment after all, Yuri noted while Geralt hung back, watching his daughter as she crouched down, trying to memorize every detail of her mother's face. She'd never known it before, so it only felt right to do so. She wasn't sure how long she should be there. Whether it would be respectful or not to just hang out like this. So she let herself brush her mother's hair back, getting a feeling of what it might have been like if she knew her before this, before finally standing and moving over to pick up the chalice. It seemed so much smaller now. It was almost shocking how something so small could cause so many problems. Though, when she picked it up, she felt something like a jolt. And then, Byleth? Kid, are you okay? Geralt asked, frowning at his suddenly rigid daughter. He nearly lunged forward when she suddenly started to tip over, before she just as suddenly righted herself and let out a yawn. Well that was quite the rest, his daughter said in a completely different voice. Now where in the world are we now? You had better not have gotten yourself in more trouble. Kid. Byleth turned to him, her green eyes looking strangely brighter than usual. No, not just brighter, they were glowing. Oh? So you did succeed in your little venture then. Your father lives, hale and hearty, and, those 4 are new. I'm guessing this isn't normal, Yuri said, giving Geralt a glance. Way to state the obvious, Yuri bird. Chatterbox might be crazy, but she hasn't been this kind of crazy yet, Happy noted. Huh. I wonder if it's something like Constance's thing. Balthus wondered, earning a frown from the fallen noble. Of course it isn't. Clearly the conditions of her condition are entirely unlike my own. Great, another bunch of weirdos. Where do you keep finding people like this? Byleth asked herself, before frowning. Wait, where are you? Why can I not see, huh? Excuse you. We are no mere weirdos, as you should well know. Constance complained, even if you are an alternate personality of Miss Byleth's, these gaps in your knowledge are inexcusable. Byleth blinked at the blonde girl. You heard me. You heard me. Well, you were speaking, Happy pointed out. No. No, I am nowhere near prepared nor willing to put up with this. She pointed to Geralt. You, patriarch, bring Byleth to a bed. Preferably a comfortable one, though I doubt the idiot would care either way. I have no intention of dealing with her interpersonal drama, so good night. What? Wait, what does? And then Byleth's eyes rolled back in her head and Geralt moved faster than he had in years to catch her before she hit the floor, completely asleep. Well, it seems our new friend is even stranger than she first appeared, Yuri noted, watching the unconscious girl with a mix of interest and amusement as her father lifted her up. It looks like there might actually be something to that Mad Oracle idea. You think so? I still think she's just from the future, Balthus commented, earning an annoyed scoff from Constance and a pat on the shoulder from Happy. Keep dreaming, B. Someday, you might get something right. Chapter 8, Divine Revelation. Stirring awake, Byleth opened her eyes and was met with a mass of green hair. It's about time you woke up. Do you know how awkward it felt when I came to in your body? Suthies. Byleth asked, still groggy from her sleep. What, don't tell me you don't remember me. Suthies, and it was indeed the young-looking goddess, frowned down at her, her arms crossed over her chest. Who is she? The ancient goddess raised an eyebrow. Who? Oh, you don't know either. Byleth muttered as she sat up. Things are a mess. How bad can it be? Edelgard is the emperor, Dimitri is the king, and the Amirans tried to invade. That does seem different, but not necessarily bad. I think I came back later than I should have. All the students are back in their nations, and a mercenary named Shay apparently took my place, but as a student. Oh, it seems things truly are different. How could that be? The mere act of traveling to the past should not have altered things to such a degree. Hey Suthies, was it a mistake that I became a teacher? What? Do not say such idiotic things, Suthies immediately shot back. Why would you think that? Well, this Shay person managed to accomplish such grand goals so quickly, and even saved someone in the process. Apparently Monica was an actual person before Kronia took her place. And what about that means it was a mistake you became a professor? I wasn't able to stand by Edelgard's side, and so many of them died while I was unable to do anything. Yes, they did, hence why we returned here, to make sure that doesn't happen. A mistake might have happened here or there, but that doesn't mean you being a professor was one. Did you not enjoy your time at the academy? Did your students not love you like one of their own? I still . Enough of this. Suthies shouted as she pointed at Byleth. If you think you made a mistake, then make up for it. Find your students, and make sure they stay safe. Byleth opened her mouth to argue, before closing it, and nodding. Good, now come on, we have much to do, and we can't do that if you stay in bed. What exactly is that? Byleth asked Suthies, as she opened the door, only to pause as she found Shamir on the other side. Oh, you're awake, good. The Archbishop wants to talk. Oh, okay, thanks Shamir. You like coffee beans, right? I'll make sure to get you some later. Is that more of that future knowledge you have? Yeah, oh, and I'll get Catherine a gift as thanks, maybe some blue cheese? Ah, but do you mind giving it to her in my place? Still don't like her. That knowledge you have sure does give you random info, huh? Byleth shrugged in response before walking past as Suthies floated close. Future knowledge. No one really believes me that I'm from the future, So Rhea told everyone I was blessed by you. Well, that is not incorrect, Suthis noted as she floated along with her vessel, who garnered some stares from the staff of the monastery while she walked up to the archbishop's office. She knew exactly where it was, so each step was taken with a confidence and familiarity that surprised those who gazed after her. Rhea, it's me, Byleth said as she knocked on the door to the archbishop's office. Ah, Byleth, do come in, came the reply, so Byleth let herself in. Rhea was at her desk, looking over a number of papers that, from what Byleth could see, seemed to pertain to Abyss and its current status. It is good to see you are, child, did you walk here in that? Byleth blinked, before looking down at the comfy, white garment she was currently wearing. Yes, I did. Is that bad? She pulled at the fabric, frowning. I guess it isn't really my color. I like black a lot better. Pink is also nice. Maybe purple. She glanced at Suthis for a moment, considering. Yeah, I could probably pull off purple. Byleth, you're wearing a nightgown. I am. She glanced down, actually studying the garment she was wearing now. Oh. I didn't know that's what this is. I thought it was a robe. It, technically is, yes. One meant for sleeping and not, typically, considered modest attire to be walking around in. Oh. That was weird. She could feel her face reddening. Was she really embarrassed by this? I didn't see my clothes. You didn't? I left them folded on the chair. Can we talk about something else? Shamir said you wanted to see me. Yes, well, I wanted to see how you were doing. I was told you started acting differently when you grabbed the chalice. I did. Do you not remember? Of course she wouldn't remember, she was possessed by me, Suthis fired back, even though Rhea couldn't hear her. Oh, Suthis says she possessed me. And it seemed Rhea wasn't expecting this answer as she suddenly snapped the quill in her hand. Did the plan actually work? Rhea asked as she began to look around. Is Mother with you? Yeah, she's right here, Byleth said, gesturing towards where Suthis was floating. Don't get me involved with your drama. But it does involve you. Mother, if you are there, can we please talk? Rhea practically begged as she tried to find Suthis. Ugh, Phaeon. Move over. Suthis said, as she moved towards where Byleth was, before the young mercenary found herself possessed, still in her own body, but not controlling it. Hello, Rhea. Or Siros, I suppose. Mother, is that truly you? Trying to get up, Rhea stopped as Suthis raised her hand. Do not call me mother. I may have regained my memories, but I am no longer the Suthis you knew. She continued, her voice taking on an imperious tone. Do you know how much trouble you have caused? Do you think I wanted any of this? But, Suthis, I did this for you. No, you did this for yourself. Rhea didn't know how to respond to that, her mouth opening and closing. Why, you have to understand, I needed to, everyone was dead, and I know how the war went, Immaculate One. The title sounded almost like a reprimand. I will not judge your decision to take vengeance for the deaths of myself and our kin. You and your remaining siblings all chose to overthrow a tyrant, whether for vengeance or justice, and I accept that. What I take issue with is your decision to guide humanity from that point. You uplifted those who gleefully drank the blood of your kin and allowed the use of our bones as weapons for these supposed nobles. Rhea's features hardened. What was I meant to do? You were dead. Everyone was dead. Sikal and Sethline were deep in sleep, in deck, and Makul abandoned me. What was I meant to do? Hide as they did until humanity decided our blood and bones were theirs by right and killed us again. You were the one who gifted the Agarthans with everything and they turned it against us. Suthis's eyes narrowed. Are you blaming me for your mistakes? You can make mistakes too, Mother. She scoffed. The Agarthans were an aberration. And what of Nemesis then? You never understood human desire. And what of your desires then? You chose to turn a continent into an egg, that you might safely nestle inside without fear of the outside, yet look what it has done. Your nobility is infested with parasites. Your common folk are left to starve or waste in the dark because you chose to wield your church as a closed fist instead of an open hand. Where are the tenets of charity and compassion in your faith? Behind the insistence you know best and anyone disagreeing is a deadly heretic? Oh, or perhaps it was hidden in the lining of declaring all things foreign and outside your control as unacceptable. How might the people of Duskur fared if you allowed acceptance of their faith? Do you even know the nations of Dada? What is the name of Almira's king, Immaculate? You shield yourself with ignorance and fear, refusing to accept that it will inevitably turn towards anger and violence just as easily as greed. And do not state greed as merely the nature of humans. She pressed a hand to her chest. I reside in the flesh of a girl you chose to sacrifice for my sake. As though I am truly some merciless god demanding blood and intestines so your crops may grow. That isn't. And it does not matter that was you of another time. Your nature does not change, not even if you hide it behind other names, Rhea. Or perhaps Siros is more correct. Would you rather be the revered saint or the humble shepherd, guiding your flock with no heed to the wolves in your midst? Ah, but what am I saying? You chose both, because for all your talk of faith, you have none in humankind. Rhea swallowed. She tried to ignore the feeling of tears pricking at her eyes as she suddenly found herself as a mere child, lectured by her angry mother. The choices I made were those that felt right in their time. How could I have faith in them when they killed you? You know not all of them did. Else you would not have elevated that lover of yours to emperor. Rhea stiffened. That is not, Wilhelm was a good friend. Oh certainly, such a good friend that his descendants still bear your crest to this day. Tell me, did you actually give me grandchildren or were you too shy to show your feelings? And that sent the color of her face right to a vivid scarlet. Mother. I am not, that is completely unnecessary for you to know. Suthies sighed. I will take that as a no, then. Why not? You could have fulfilled your ambitions with a decent clutch of young, could you not? Can we please get back to you lambasting me for my failures? What do you think I am doing? Honestly, out of all of you, was it truly only Hammer of Judgment that continued his line? I do still remember little benevolent one scampering around the valley. Hold now, did Immovable or Windcaller have kin? In fact, where are they? I need to discuss their own failures to aid their sister in her time of crisis. Mother, please. I mean honestly, what were they thinking? You are the youngest, they should have been looking out for you. I swear, I will knock their scaly heads together. Please don't. Neither of them could take human shape after the war, so they should have stuck around anyway. Humans will deify anything. Mother, I thought you were arguing against controlling humanity through faith. Suthies scoffed. Well, if you were going to do it, you might as well have done it right instead of this fumbling mess. I did not do things that badly. Oh no? And the fact that no one is close enough to you to even notice when the Archbishop trades her identity for a new one? How many names have you taken over the past millennia, One every 100 years? And none ever guessed the scores of identical women were the same person. It worked, didn't it? She muttered, maybe a little petulantly. The look of annoyance and skepticism looked genuinely out of place on Byleth's face. Oh, it worked, did it? That is why I am standing here in the body of a girl from a future path wherein you died? And your entire church collapsed in a miserable failure because you completely and utterly failed to take notice that, nearly the entire line of the empire died off following a soft coup? Or how about how the nobility of the kingdom quite blatantly murdered their own monarch? You do not think those enormous failures that you did nothing to intervene in could possibly contribute to unrest resulting in rebellions? Well, the alliance is stable. The flat expression was definitely more natural though. You call that oligarchical mess stable? I would not be surprised if that Regan boy wanted you dead too for some reason or another. Probably the Almiran prejudice. Claude is Almiran. Suthies pinched the bridge of her nose. How did you possibly run a continent? No, never mind, I have said my piece and it is up to you now to start solving your mess. I will still be with this idiotic girl, so do not concern yourself with my status any further. And that means no more homunculi. Rhea winced. But, mother. Do not call on me for at least 100 years. I need a nap. And with that, the gleam left Byleth's eyes and the woman's posture visibly changed from the imperious confidence of Suthies to a deeply embarrassed girl ducking her head so she didn't have to meet Rhea's eyes. How much of that did you hear? All of it. Rhea let out a very slow breath, then tried to smile. It didn't really work. Thank you for the chance to speak to my mother again. I had, forgotten how she could be. I suppose it truly is easy to put someone on a pedestal while they are gone. Byleth fidgeted with the fabric of her nightgown. I should go. Lady Rhea, Geralt, and Mr. Leclerc have, Seath began as he entered the room, before pausing when he noticed Byleth. What are you doing in here? Talking to Rhea. Well, not me, really. Suthies was the one talking to her. That earned an incredulous stare, before he shook it off. Miss Eisner, you are supposed to wait in the audience chamber when you have a meeting with the Archbishop. But I knocked. And she said to come in. Rhea, meanwhile, had a hand pressed against her forehead. Seath, I realize you tend to default to protocol, but could you please react more strongly to the revelation that our mother has returned? I think a topic like that warrants a more private discussion. I was here for all of it, you don't need to hide things from me, Byleth said, earning a sigh from Seath. That isn't why don't you go see your father? He's in the other chamber. Oh, right, okay. And once she hurried past, Seath carefully shut the door, before turning to his sister. Rhea, what did she mean by, Rhea? But the Archbishop paid him no heed as she pulled a bottle of wine from her secret stash and promptly started downing it right in front of him. Seath watched for a moment, mostly to see if she was actually going to breathe in between gulps, before letting out a sigh. The things I put up with for family. Papa! Byleth yelled upon seeing her dad. She immediately raced across the chamber to practically hug him, nearly knocking him off his feet. Whoa! Hey there, kid. I'm glad to see you're doing okay. He returned the hug with a fond smile, holding her close. You gave me a scare there. It's okay. Suthies just woke up. So that's what that was, Yuri, who was also there, commented, first time I've seen a divine revelation like that, though I can't say I've seen many in general. Oh, you're also here, Byleth noticed, earning a chuckle from the leader of the Ashen Wolves. You could stand to sound a little more excited, friend. Trust me, this is way more excitement than she usually shows, Geralt said, before letting go of his daughter. How are you doing, kid? Everything okay with Rhea? You should probably talk to her about that. I don't think I should say, she explained, looking a little awkward. Oh, so now you're trying to prove Happy's nickname for you false? And here I thought Chatterbox worked pretty well, Yuri teased. Byleth frowned at him, which just made his smile widen, before Geralt gave her a pat on the head. All right, I'll go talk to her. She wanted to see me anyway. Are you going to be okay without me? I'm not that fragile, Dad. Just checking. He ruffled her hair, a slight smile coming to his face as he saw her pout, before he headed over to Rhea's office, leaving Byleth with the overly pretty Abizxian. For what it's worth, I'm sorry I scared you so badly back then, Yuri said. Your dad was the only one close enough I could fake hitting, and I didn't realize it would set you off like that. You didn't think cutting down my father would upset me? He shrugged, smirking slightly. I didn't think it would upset you to the point you split a man in half. I was pretty sure you were going to go for me next if I didn't get out of there. I suppose that's one thing to thank Aelfric for. Not really. You wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with if it weren't for him. But I wouldn't be here either if it wasn't for him. He gave a rueful chuckle. Gratitude is funny like that. A person's faults don't change the fact they helped you. Their help doesn't change the fact they hurt you either. Byleth felt something strange. Something like guilt. I'm sorry too. I really would have killed you there. I had a feeling, but I can't blame you either. The whole reason I landed in Abyss was because I cut down a bunch of knights that were going after my old gang. I can respect that protective instinct. Even if it would have gotten you killed. Heh, especially then. My line of work makes me a lot of enemies. I can't go turning away a friend just because they tried to kill me once. You're a really weird guy. I prefer to think of myself as eccentric. It sounds nicer than crazy. Byleth shrugged at that. If you say so. So, what are you going to do now? You mean with Aelfric gone? Well, I don't need him to take care of my people. Not only that, but since the school year is out already, Lady Rhea's given us wolves the run of the place. He grinned. I think she's hoping we might make friends with you. Not that she needs to, considering I already count you as one. Byleth didn't quite know what to say to that. I'm going to go get food, I haven't eaten. Do you want to come with me? Oh? Asking me out on a date already? Well, if you insist. Byleth blinked, then felt her face start to redden, which really didn't help the strange sense of panic she was starting to feel. I didn't mean it like that. Hey, no need to get embarrassed, I was just teasing. Though, I do have one thing I'm hoping you can satisfy my curiosity on. Huh? Oh, what? She asked, a little thankful the topic moved away from whatever that was. Are you wearing a nightgown? And that made her face redden slightly again. Ah, yeah, it is. I didn't realize it was one when I left my room. Really? I would think it would be obvious. A sleeping robe doesn't really look like a regular robe, now does it? Well, I didn't know, Byleth countered, a little defensively, I don't usually wear. Yuri's eyebrow raised. You don't usually wear? Byleth's face was easily the hottest she'd ever felt it get. And nothing, I am going to get changed. Yuri chuckled to himself as he watched the newest, and perhaps strangest, addition to the monastery scurry off while blushing like a schoolgirl. And if his eyes happened to linger, well, there was nothing in the church's texts that said it was blasphemy to check out an oracle. Cute. You're definitely going to be fun, my eccentric friend. Chapter 9, Forced Relaxation. Byleth most definitely did not squeak upon finding Yuri outside her bedroom door, though she did fix the slightly younger man with a dirty look as the two of them walked to the dining hall. You didn't have to wait right there. Heh, but what kind of friend would I be if I didn't take you up on your invitation to dine together? You extended the offer, so obviously I'm going to take it. Still. You startled me. She didn't even think she could get startled. I'd say sorry, but I do have a reputation as a sneak for a reason. Don't worry though, I promise I didn't peek through the keyhole. I didn't think you did until you mentioned it. Really? You're not a very suspicious person. You should be more careful. You never know when a scoundrel might try to take advantage of you. Byleth held up a finger and a tiny flame formed at the tip. Heh. That's not quite what I had in mind, but if you insist you can protect yourself, I won't argue. Byleth nodded, cutting out the flame with a gesture and smiling proudly to herself as the two of them walked along to the monastery's dining hall, where they quickly found some familiar faces. Ugh, how is it that this place doesn't serve booze at all? Balthus asked, scratching his head as he looked at the menu. It's part of the church, why would it? Happy countered from where she was sitting with a morose Constance. Apparently the area was too bright and open for the blonde. What, you're saying booze can't be sacred? It's definitely the stuff of the goddess. I don't think that's part of the official doctrine, Balthus, Yuri pointed out with obvious amusement. Ah, come on boss, can't you agree with me on this one? Hey Yuri bird, hey chatterbox, Happy greeted, ignoring Balthus's complaint. My apologies for not greeting you properly as you entered, Constance droned, her shadowed eyes regarding them with characteristic despair. You should not have to tolerate my odious presence any longer with how rude I have been. I will go. Happy didn't even entertain that, tugging her back into her seat with one hand. Byleth, meanwhile, went over to the menu with a small frown, before looking over each of the wolves. Okay, put in your requests, I'm going to cook. Oh? First you ask me out to breakfast, and now you're cooking the meal? You're really aiming to impress me, friend. It's better when everyone's eating something they like, Byleth said, internally cursing how her out-of-control emotions meant even just a little teasing was making her blush. So, yeah, tell me what you want and I'll cook. All right. I won't say no to that. Balthus said with a big grin. You think you can get me some booze? Oh, sure, I'll check if the kitchen has some. Don't encourage him, Yuri chided. And if you are going to cook, perhaps some grilled herring? I heard someone mention earlier they have a fresh haul of fish today. I am not worthy of being bestowed a dish by Dash. Coco likes 2 fish sauté, I'll take a fish sandwich. I'll take some super spicy fish dango, extra spicy. Okay. Nodding, Byleth headed to the area where all the food was made. Thankfully, despite the academy being closed, it seemed the kitchen was kept fully stocked, and people were still allowed to cook their own meals. Even if Byleth could feel the staff staring at her, likely because of any rumors of her they might have heard. And for someone who hadn't really cooked a proper meal outside of just roasting something over an open fire for, at least a decade, Byleth thought she did an okay job. At least, until she placed the dishes in front of them all, and began to realize all the mistakes, such as how the dango was crumbling apart, the grilled herring was clearly burnt on one side, the 2 fish sauté was unevenly cut, and even the fish sandwich was spilling out of the bread. It also didn't help that the closest thing to booze she found was cooking wine. Ah, so this is my justly deserved punishment, Constance murmured as she stared forlornly at her dish. It's not that bad, is it? Byleth asked. I've had worse, Happy replied. Which wasn't really a ringing endorsement. I think it's good. Balthus said, biting down on the dango as he drank the cooking wine. I must say, when you had jumped to cooking so eagerly, I assumed you must be a master chef, Yuri commented. I am good at cooking. Protested Byleth, I just haven't cooked in a long time. And how long would that be? 10 years, give or take a few years. And you still thought you could cook after so long? I just wanted to thank you guys. She hated how weak her voice sounded there. Not cool, Yuri Bird, Happy said with a slight frown to her leader, don't make Chatterbox cry. I don't really see what's wrong with it, it tastes fine to me, Balthus said, prompting a sigh from Yuri. All right, I can see when I'm pushing a joke too far. It's okay, Byleth, you gave it a good try. Practice makes perfect, right? He pushed himself up from the table. In fact, how about I help you? You still need to eat too, don't you? Her stomach growled, as though awoken by him mentioning it. It's fine, I'll just have whatever you don't eat. No, that's not happening. Come on, let's get back to the kitchen, we can fix something up for you and me that isn't half burnt. She frowned at the mention of her failure, but went along with the pretty boy to try again. And once they were done and the plate of fish was sitting in front of her, well, she could be forgiven for digging right in. Especially once she discovered just how good it tasted. To the point that she might have let out a noise that made the wolves stare at her. Wow, guess she really likes your cooking, Yuri Bird. Well, in that case, I might be willing to cook for her again, if she asks nicely. Yuri said, with a far too smug smile. You Blushing, Byleth ducked her head. What, not used to someone flirting with you? Balthus asked as he finished his food. Don't tell me you haven't dated anyone. The last person I loved died in my arms, Byleth said, trying to get the teasing to stop, only to immediately regret it as the wolves stared at her again. Oh sorry. Smooth, B. Is that someone from that future you saw? Yuri asked, receiving a shaky nod in return. Well, in that case, you have a chance to save them, don't you? Yeah, I do, that's the whole reason I'm here. It's just, I don't know if it can work out. Everything is so different, she's probably completely different too. And? Listen, I might not have the sort of visions of the future you're dealing with, but I like to think I have a good sense of how things can turn out. What's the risk in trying? You already saw her die, you can't do much worse than that. Doing a great job there, Yuri Bird. I'm not wrong, am I? You know whatever happened last time can't possibly happen now, so why not just go with what feels right? If you love someone, you have to be willing to take risks for them. Yeah, I guess so, Byleth mumbled, before jumping as Balthus suddenly pushed himself up. "Alright. I'm not great with this kind of emotional stuff, but I can tell you need to get your head clear, future girl. So let's clear that head. You promised me a spar, so come on." Byleth felt a slight smile come to her at the boisterous man's demand. "Yeah, okay, let's do it. Maybe this really will help." No thinking. The battlefield is no place for pointless worries. Happy watched as Byleth nodded firmly with a wide smile, before she and Bee headed out to the training grounds. So she's not only weird like Coco, but she's a musclehead like Bee. And here I thought I had Chatterbox figured out already. "I apologize for my uncanny irregularities," Constance mumbled, prompting a pause from the redhead. "I almost forgot you were there. You were being weirdly quiet, Coco. It is not my place to speak in the midst of such esteemed individuals. I really hope the training place they have up here is indoors." "As if we'd be so lucky," Yuri said with a chuckle, standing up to follow his friends. "As for our new friend, I doubt we've even scratched the surface of how many sides she has. Remember how monotone she became in the fight against Eelfric?" "Not really. I was more focused on actually fighting instead of staring at girls." "Ouch, cutting right to the heart there, Happy. If you require a heart to be impaled, mine is readily available." "Alright, let's get going, she's getting too down," Happy said, pulling Constance up with her so they could all head to the training grounds. Which were, unfortunately, fully outdoors and in direct sunlight. Not that Happy was really paying attention to that. "Whoa. Chatterbox is solid." "Indeed she is," Yuri noted, taking in the sight of the strange oracle in a short, midriff-bearing top and interestingly tight shorts. Not a bad outfit for physical activity, and one that showed quite clearly the woman most definitely lived the life of a mercenary. Not that Balthus wasn't solid as well, which he showed off by tossing his jacket aside, leaving him in only his pants. Constance sighed. "Their magnificent physiques only serve to remind me how poor my own is." First to say uncle loses, got it?" Balthus asked as the two stood across from one another in the training grounds. "Just try not to surrender too quickly," Byleth responded as she stretched before the spar. As for the spar itself, it seemed both were going barehanded, as Byleth seemed fully confident she could take Balthus without a weapon. It was certainly interesting. As far as Yuri could tell from the quick snooping around that he did, Byleth had been called the Ashen Demon because of how she fought seemingly without any emotion. In other words, a true demon on the battlefield. Yet, from the small time he had known her, she was anything but. One moment she could be gleefully committing acts of violence, the next she was completely flustered at being teased, but pushing a bit too far would make her crumble entirely. One thing was for certain, Yuri thought to himself as the two fighters charged at one another, he really didn't want to make an enemy of her. Dodging Balthus's first strike by slipping under his fist, Byleth countered with an elbow to his side, getting a grunt from him. Not wasting a moment, he snapped his knee up, striking Byleth's arm as she blocked his attack. The two backed up, getting some distance, before Balthus rushed in, throwing surprisingly quick jabs for a man of his frame. Though it wasn't too surprising to anyone who knew the man, Balthus was far from an unthinking brute, as was clearly shown by him using his greater height and longer reach to keep Byleth on the defensive. The so-called demon didn't bother blocking, favoring quick dodges as she gave ground, an unexpected focus in her eyes as she locked on Balthus's broad frame. That early strike to her arm likely showed her she couldn't afford to take his blows, there was already a faint bruise forming where his knee hit. Or, perhaps, she was simply gauging his ability, because she suddenly moved in quickly, slapping his knee down as it rose again, deflecting the blow and driving her free fist towards his stomach. He could afford to take the blow, or so he gambled, his eyes visibly widened at the force behind her fist, but his hands still moved quickly, catching her wrist and shoulder before wrenching her to the side and flinging her across the field, where she rolled to her feet in the dust, a sharp, violent smile on her face. Balthus opened his mouth, probably about to make a taunt about his status as the king of grappling, before he actually shut it again, a small smirk coming to his face as he settled back into a combat stance. Byleth seemed to giggle, her shoulders shaking in apparent mirth, before she sprinted straight at him. The next moments were an impressive showing from both combatants. If Yuri had to hazard a guess, Byleth wasn't a natural brawler. Her motions were almost standard, strikes and jabs he could see on over 100 fighters starting out with the basics. The issue was, as far as he could see, she knew exactly how to use every single one of those basic moves to their full effectiveness. It didn't matter if a punch was simple if it still collided. There was nothing fancy to it, but damn if she wasn't efficient. In contrast, Balthus really was a natural genius. The large man never wasted a movement, even if they looked extravagant. Strikes turned into attempted grabs, broken holds turned into throws. His superior size was used to its full advantage as he pressed the attack, only ever letting Byleth get away from him if he needed the moment to breathe, and even then he usually let her get away by tossing her across the field. Really, if the two of them wanted to kill the other, well, Yuri wasn't completely sure how it would go. In a straight brawl like this, maybe Balthus would have the edge, but that little flame at Byleth's fingertip really did illustrate the issue with trying to take her on. Not to mention, while she wasn't a natural brawler, she most definitely was a natural sword fighter. But that really wasn't relevant at the moment. You could try to pin her, Balthus. Balthus just laughed at Yuri's suggestion, facing off against Byleth again as the two circled one another under the increasingly cloudy sky. Nah, I couldn't. Believe me, that wouldn't end well for me at all. Yuri raised an eyebrow. He'd heard some fighters could get a type of clairvoyance in their fights. So what could Balthus have possibly seen to remove the idea at all from his options? Oh? And why is that? You kidding? How do you think it's gonna look if a big guy like me pins down a lady like that? I'm not a scumbag, Yuri. His palm met his face as an exasperated groan slipped out of his mouth. You're so lucky I'm not happy, Balthus. I'd resent that remark, but yeah, I did get really close to sighing there, the redhead admitted. Byleth, meanwhile, paused as Balthus's remark registered. Then she just kind of stared, as though suddenly noticing the sweaty, dirty, shirtless man across from her. Aha, you're wide open. Something Balthus took full advantage of in order to close the distance. Byleth did snap to alertness there, though her quickly thrown punch was easily caught by the big man, who quickly pivoted into a full-on throw. Right towards the Ashen Wolves. Huh? Ah, hold on one moment, are we outside? Constance, her usual self awakening from her morose stupor, began to ask before Byleth fully crashed into her, sending the blonde off her feet while Yuri and Happy did absolutely nothing to try to help. Watch out, Coco, Happy said after the fact, earning an amused noise from Yuri. GHW, would you get off of me? Constance demanded. Sorry. Byleth immediately apologized, getting up quickly. I didn't mean to. Are you okay? Humph, please, as though I could be hurt by something as simple as a woman being thrown at me. Constance huffed before pushing herself up and brushing off her dress. Oh great, my clothes are completely filthy now. Balthus. This is your fault, is it not? Yeah, it is, my bad. Is that really all you have to say? And as for, oh goddess, you are completely filthy, she said the instant she noticed Byleth, you're completely covered in sweat and dust and, ugh, when was the last time you took a bath? Byleth blinked under the sudden deluge of words, before pausing. I washed myself off in a river about, no, wait, when was that? Constance scowled. That is not the answer I wanted to hear. No, that is it, you two are done with whatever nonsense this is, and you, young lady, are coming with me at once. Huh? Wait, I'm pretty sure I'm older than, hey. But Constance would not be dissuaded from grabbing Byleth by the wrist and pulling her along, muttering under her breath about ridiculous brutes and their poor bathing habits. I'd better go make sure Coco doesn't accidentally drown Chatterbox, Happy commented, before waving off the two boys of the Ashen Wolves. See you Yuri Bird. Bye Happy. Try not to have too much fun, Yuri said, amused. Balthus, meanwhile, crossed his arms and grinned. Well, looks like that means I won this match. Looks like I'm still the undefeated king of grapplers. Haven't you lost matches before? Those don't count. I'm undefeated against her, so that's all that matters. Despite Byleth's protests, the mercenary soon found herself in the monastery's bathhouse, thankfully empty thanks to there not being many residents present at the moment. Even so, Byleth couldn't help but feel flustered as she did her best to stare at a wall instead of her two companions. Come now, I understand you are a mercenary, but that does not mean you can ignore hygiene. I refuse to be indebted to someone so slovenly. Constance said, placing her hands on Byleth's shoulders and pushing her towards the bath. I know how to take care of myself. I've just been busy. That is no excuse. Best just to go along with Coco when she's like this, Happy advised. If you're not careful she might try to use one of her magic spells to force you to take a bath, and who knows what kind of side effects that'll have. How rude. I would not use any of my experimental spells on her, unless she consented to it first. Experimental spells? Byleth asked. Yeah, Coco likes to make up new spells. My personal favorite was when she made Bee cough up bubbles. Constance sniffed imperiously. That man is far too vulgar for his own good, so I took it upon myself to clean his mouth for him. Huh? Is that because you want to bring back your house? Byleth asked. How astute of you. You are indeed correct. Once I show the Empire my magical prowess, then they will surely beg for me to come back. Constance boasted as they stepped into the baths. Well, if you need my help, I don't mind volunteering. Just, please don't make me cough up bubbles. There shall be no need for that, as I have already perfected that spell, oh ho ho ho. So if she hadn't, she probably would have made Byleth cough up bubbles. But before Byleth could reconsider her offer to volunteer, she stiffened as she felt Constance's hands on her back. Huh? Constance, what are you doing? Is it not obvious? If you shall not stay clean, then I shall have to make sure that, as my attendant, you are presentable. Since when was I an attendant? When I deemed you worthy of it, of course. After all, though you may be low in status, you are also one who has received a divine revelation, which clearly means you are perfect for assisting me in my quest. As such, I shall award you with the honor of being cleaned by me. Wow, Chatterbox, aren't you lucky? Happy asked in a teasing tone as she relaxed in the water. I can clean myself. I do not believe you, but if you wish to prove this to me, then as my attendant, I shall allow you to clean my body. Oh, that was worse. That was so much worse, because now Byleth had to actually look at the admittedly gorgeous blonde's bare body and it felt like her face was on fire. See, can I pick the first option? Constance rolled her eyes and turned to look at Byleth again with a frown on her face. A frown Byleth was trying her best to focus on instead of letting her eyes drift lower. Honestly, would you make up your mind? I cannot abide these constant changes in your decision-making. Sorry. I think she's just flustered, Coco, Happy pointed out. Oh ho, so that is it. I suppose it is only natural to be caught off guard by my natural beauty and noble bearing. Very well, if it will aid in your comfort, the best solution here is to simply blindfold you. How's that? If you cannot see, you cannot be embarrassed. A simple solution, do you not agree? Byleth could think of a lot of ways that being blindfolded would be way worse in this situation. Do you even have a blindfold on you? Happy asked, apparently willing to entertain this idea. No, but I have the perfect spell for this. Constance said before pointing towards Byleth, whose blush only increased as she suddenly found a blindfold around her eyes. So, what was this spell for? Have you not heard of the term, justice is blind? This spell will ensure that justice shall be dispensed fairly. Constance said, pride evident in her voice. Constance, I can't remove the blindfold, Byleth said, trying to remove the surprisingly sturdy cloth. Of course you cannot. What would be the point of this spell if it could be removed easily? Until I break the spell, it shall stay in place. Now come over here. Stiffening as she felt Constance grab her arm, Byleth could only hope her torment ended quickly. That took far longer than Byleth hoped it would. Which meant that as they left, the mercenary could only stare at the ground, her face completely flushed and unable to meet anyone's gaze. Ah, what a lovely bath. I must commend you, my attendant. You have quite skillful hands. Constance praised, which only made things worse. You do need to work on sitting still though, you were quite fidgety when it came time for me to return the favor. The blindfold didn't help at all. It really didn't. In fact, Byleth was fairly certain it made things worse because when Constance insisted on washing her off, she started thinking about Dorothea and how she'd try to take care of her in between battles, and then to stop thinking about that, she tried to focus on what was around her, and that meant she was instead thinking about the two beautiful women sharing a bath with her, and somehow that conflated in her mind to a naked Dorothea sharing a bath with her. Not feeling chatty, Chatterbox? Happy asked, making Byleth stiffen for a second before she managed to relax. Why yeah. I don't really take baths with other people. Oh, it is remarkably easy to get used to. Just picture taking a bath as you usually would, with servants attending to your needs, and then have them be in the bath along with you. A simple solution, Constance stated. Helpful as always, Coco. Oh, I know, there is no need to praise me. Though I will not refuse it if you insist. Oh ho 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 ho. Ah, I thought I heard noble laughter around here, Yuri commented as he walked on up, a slight grin on his face. You ladies enjoy yourselves. Indeed we did. Byleth has proven to be quite the adequate attendant, though we did need to blindfold her so she would get over her shyness. Yuri raised an eyebrow, amusement plain on his face as Byleth reddened even further. Interesting. I have to say, the uniform looks good on you, my friend. Ah, thanks. She hadn't ever worn one before, but she did have to admit the black and silver uniform fit her pretty nicely. She wasn't really sure the headband was completely necessary, but Constance insisted her hair was too messy otherwise. I'm not really used to skirts. Should I ask you to take yours off then? Yuri. Do not try to embarrass my attendant. Constance reprimanded. I'm just teasing a little, Constance. No need to get upset. He does glance over to Byleth though. If you want me to stop though, feel free to say it. I wouldn't want to make you actually uncomfortable. Byleth stared at him for a moment, then frowned. Come with me, we should talk. Oh? Well, if you insist. Constance and Happy shared a glance, before deciding to leave the pair alone as Byleth led the way to the monastery's outdoor garden, the one where she would usually take people for tea back when things were different. You really do know this place like the back of your hand, huh? Yuri commented, every time you go somewhere, it's like you've been there 100 times and know every secret it could hide. Not really. I didn't know about Abyss. That's probably the biggest secret here, Byleth replied, before taking a seat at the tea table. Not exactly the best weather for sitting outside, but hey, if you insist. Yuri gave her a smile as he sat across from her. So, what do you want to talk about? Byleth took a slow breath. She didn't used to fidget so much, but nowadays it was like there was a nervous energy constantly under her skin, fighting to come out. Still, she could do this. How can I tell if I'm attracted to men or women? All right, I'll admit it, that was not at all where I thought this was going. He leaned back in his seat, a little more amused and much less concerned. I thought you said you loved a woman in the future. I did? Oh, I did, yes, I did, I did say that, and I was in love with women, well, the thing is, that is all really complicated and I don't want to get into it now. That's fine. What's getting you so frazzled here? She took another breath, trying to steady herself. I think I mostly like girls. It was really hard being in the baths with Constance and Happy because they're both really beautiful and they were right there, completely naked and they blindfolded me so I wouldn't see it because I was just a complete mess, and I didn't used to be like this. I don't know why I'm suddenly so flustered because ladies are pretty but I am and it's really hard to deal with. Emotions are just so big and intense and I can't figure out what I should be feeling. Okay, so you like girls. That's fine. Your emotions are intense right now, I'm guessing because you didn't used to feel them. Yes. Yes, exactly. For most of my life, everything was so muted, then things started getting vibrant when I met MH, anyway, the war happened and everything, I don't know. It's just so much right now, and I almost wish I wasn't feeling anything again, because how can I live like this if just seeing breasts makes my face go red? To be fair, seeing breasts does tend to make most people that are attracted to women feel aroused, he pointed out. Don't say it like that. Okay, no more admitting that arousal is a thing people can feel. You know what I mean. He tried not to laugh. She just looked so serious. I'm curious though. How do men factor into this? You're mostly talking about how attractive you find women. Byleth's face reddened, before she managed to shake off her embarrassment. I didn't really think of it at first, but when Balthus said that thing, I just sort of noticed he was shirtless and sweaty, and it was the same feeling. A little different though, I guess. And, to be clear, it was the part about pinning you that made you start seeing him in that light. Her glare was more cute than intimidating, at least in Yuri's honest opinion. You already knew that, you didn't need to ask. I like to confirm things. Have you been attracted to men before? Maybe? I mean, you're really pretty, but you're also annoying. Ouch. Alright, that's fair. So you saw Balthus's bare chest and had the kind of awakening I'm sure a lot of people have had over the years. Is that a problem? I don't know. Maybe? I don't, it's weird, right? I mean, I know most women like men, I didn't think I was one of them, but I guess I am. Is liking both an option? Speaking as someone who does like both, as you put it, yes, it is. Oh. She seemed to look him over, as though placing that new information in her mental image of him. Have you ever? I've had sex with men and women, yes. Have you? The way her face reddened was an answer in and of itself. So, right, okay. Okay, I think I might understand things better. Glad to hear I could help. Just something to keep in mind though, but there's a difference between thinking someone's attractive and actually having a passion for them. You're not beholden to that attraction, it's just something everyone experiences. Well, almost everyone. I've met people who were willingly celibate all their lives without a hint of interest in anyone. Sounds nice, Byleth murmured, making Yuri laugh. Maybe, but it doesn't sound like that's your thing, so you're out of luck on that front, friend. Though, since I have you here, do you think you would mind answering a question of my own? Oh, sure. Yuri tried not to smile too wide at the sheer lack of hesitation. This girl was shockingly unguarded at times. What do you think of me? I'd like to hear your honest opinion. You're a dick, you're way too smug for someone I can beat up, I have no idea how or why you always have eyeliner on, and I wish you'd stop teasing me so much. Well, asked and answered, I suppose. And what's your honest opinion of your future lover? She blinked. Oh, she's really kind, flirtatious, also. I didn't really, she's confident and smart and, everything about her is beautiful. Her voice, her hair, her eyes, even when things were at their worst, she tried to help me. To make me happy, when I couldn't be otherwise. Now that sounds like something right out of a love story. You see what I mean though, right? That's genuine love, not just lust. Byleth took a breath. She's dead though. Even if she's alive now, the one I knew died. I don't know if we could have anything like that now. Well, you'll never know until you see her again, right? Don't give it up until you're sure. And even if things don't work out, think of it this way. When you're attracted to men and ladies, you have twice the options. She huffed in amusement that time, favoring him with a slight smile. A smaller, more natural one than the insane glee she could show. You know, speaking honestly, you do have some redeeming qualities too, Yuri. Oh? And would you mind telling me what those are? I would. She grinned, getting up and smoothing down her skirt. Feel free to ask me again later though. Maybe we could have some tea to discuss it over. Well, if a pretty lady insists on taking me to tea, who am I to say no? Or maybe I'll just invite Constance instead, or Happy. No, Happy might be better for a normal conversation, I'll need to actually prepare for Constance, she mused to herself as she started walking away, much to Yuri's amusement. "Goodbye to you too, friend." He chuckled to himself, leaning back in his chair and glancing towards the cloudy sky overhead. So I'm annoying, huh? Well, that just made him want to change her mind. Chapter 10, Being Honest, for once. Byleth had to admit, it felt nice having someone her age to talk with. Sure, Yuri was annoying most of the time, but it still felt good having someone help her through her thoughts. A part of her wondered how she would have been if she had always felt these emotions when young, and whether or not she would be able to deal with them. If nothing else, she probably would have gotten used to her small bouts of panic. Regardless, she soon arrived back at her room, ready for some rest. Though, now that she took the time to look, this was her room. The same room she had back when she was a professor. Sure, it might not have all the same items she furnished the room with, but she remembered it clearly as day. And as her thoughts drifted back to when she was a professor, she also began to think about her students. Even if her relationship to them might have faded during the war, she couldn't help but think of fond moments with them. Of Hubert and Ferdinand arguing with one another, Caspar dragging the sleeping Lindhart around, Petra being ever eager to learn more, Bernadetta shyly showing her the plants in the greenhouse and getting her into gardening. Even the students that she had invited from other houses were ones she thought fondly of. Even if Leonie and her were at odds with one another at times. And even if nothing came about from it, she was glad Dorothea was alive again. Once the war started, she was the one she found the most comfort in, and the one she truly thought she loved. Which left Edelgard. If she was honest, she didn't know exactly how to feel about Edelgard. Sure, she was one of the first students she met, and she had become her teacher at her insistence, as back then Byleth had trouble choosing stuff on her own. After that, Byleth couldn't help but remember how close she got to her, how proud her student was of her, and how she wanted her teacher to stand on her own. How the two bonded over their weekly tea parties, and how the first ones were a mess until Edelgard showed Byleth proper etiquette. The way they danced together at the tower after missing their chance at the ball, how despite her attempt to appear like a serious student, she was always eager to get to the dessert portion of the meal, and had even attempted to cook with Byleth once. Byleth was thankful she was able to stop her from using her axe. Above all else, Byleth wished she had one last chance to talk to her. She wasn't even sure they would talk about. Perhaps they could act like nothing had changed. As if they were still the closest of allies and confidants. And maybe Byleth could tell her. Oh, she was in love with Edelgard. That did explain things. It explained a great many things. Including why it felt like her unbeating heart had been ripped from her chest when she had to kill her. She really was filled with hate at the end there. Hate for the Agarthans, hate for the war, hate for everyone that took up violence against her and even the people that fought against Edelgard. She wanted to walk with her too, and she hated herself for that moment of hesitation that meant she lost her forever. I really wish I could stop feeling, she mumbled to herself, before moving over to her bed and flopping straight into the blankets. It wasn't even that late out, but she felt exhausted. Self-reflection really was much harder than just denying her feelings. But, no, she didn't really want to be numb again. What she wanted most was to return to those days of teaching her class, but that wasn't going to happen. The people she knew were lost to her, and the ones here, they really would be different. How different, she couldn't possibly know, but maybe things could be better. That was what she wanted, wasn't it? A better world where she didn't have to see the people she loved die. Maybe she could find a way to reach them. Not as a mercenary, not as a teacher, but some way. Somehow. Byleth's breathing slowed as she drifted off, exhaustion pulling her into a peaceful rest, where she dreamt of happier days with the students she loved. Hours later, Byleth woke up with tears on her face. Not an unusual occurrence for her, especially after the war. This wasn't after the war though, it was long before it, and that thought, at least, brought something of a smile to her face as she pushed up from the bed. It was dark out, the darkness of actual night instead of the overcast from earlier, though the cloudy sky likely contributed to just how dark it was. Still, Byleth really did know the monastery like the back of her hands, as Yuri said, so maneuvering her way through the courtyard and towards the mess hall was easy enough. She hadn't had anything other than breakfast, so she was feeling peckish, to say the least. What should she have though? She had fish earlier, so maybe something sweeter? She used to have notes on this, which dishes counted as sweet, spicy, or bitter, which ones emphasized meat or vegetables or fish. She should get another calendar. She had no idea when any of the holidays were now, and she really should be keeping track. As she mused over her plans for the near future, considering whether or not she should take up gardening again now that she had access to the greenhouse, the young woman paused at the entrance to the dining hall because someone was already in there. Rhea. It looked like her. The candlelight wasn't especially bright, but the woman's clothing looked like the white dress Rhea usually favored, though her green hair was much looser than usual. Byleth frowned at the lack of response, before moving closer and lightly shaking the Archbishop's shoulder. Rhea? Are you okay? MRRRHGHLLRHRNK, was the eloquent response from the woman, slumped face first against the table. She wasn't wearing most of her raiments and her weird crown thing was gone, but it was definitely Rhea. And, she smelled like alcohol. Not like Gerald would sometimes smell like alcohol after a particularly raucous night, but more of a sharper scent. Tangy, maybe? Byleth hadn't tried wine before, so she wasn't really sure how to describe it. That was an open wine bottle on the table though. One of many, though the others were completely drained. Gerald. Rhea was looking up at her now, staring with bleary eyes. No, it's just me. Byleth. Oh. Byleth. Ah, hello child, Rhea greeted, before frowning at her through her curtain of loose hair. What are you doing up? Children should be in bed. I'm 25, no, wait, I'm 20 again, I'm 20 years old. A baby. Rhea nodded. Very talented though. Good of you to have your human shape ready, you'll need that for the humans. I don't have any other shape. You don't. For some reason, Rhea sounded genuinely upset at that. Poor thing, just like Seth Flane, and Setkel, and everyone else. I'm the only one, again. Byleth had seen her father when he was drunk before. He tried his best to be responsible around her, but it was inevitable with how much he drank. She never cared, mostly because she couldn't, but she remembered him being much more lively than this. Actually. Where is my father anyway? Oh, he was with me. And where is he now? Maybe with Seath? He was there too. He needed a drink after I told him how our mother thinks my entire life's work is shit. Byleth shifted uncomfortably. It's not all bad. No, it is. She was right. I'm an egg. Stuck inside myself, never hatching. The world is my egg and I cannot break free. So I die inside it, never born. She was strangely poetic when she was drunk. So, they're in your office. That would be the most logical conclusion, yes. Do you want a drink? I have some still here. She raised the bottle, offering it. No, thank you. I was just going to get some food. Ah, of course. Food is very good. Goddess, I could go for a steak. Do you know I do not even eat with everyone? I take meals in my room because I am pathetic. You're not pathetic. Mother thinks I am, and she is right. She is always right. Except for the damned Agarthance. She was wrong about that one. She cannot deny that. Byleth half expected Suthies to chime in there, but no, her companion was silent. Probably still sleeping. I could make a steak. Would you? You truly are a generous child. That is why you should be Archbishop, not me. Generosity. That is what is needed. Sure. Byleth moved away from the drunken Archbishop and went to root around in the kitchen. She did find some decent game that would work for some steaks, so over to the stove she went while keeping an ear out just in case Rhea did or said something else stupid. The idea of Byleth being the Archbishop, well, Seath did want to offer her that position in the previous timeline. She remembered some of that. She never took him up on it though, mostly due to the crippling despair and wrath that had completely overtaken her life. She should stop thinking about this subject before she made herself sad again. Some time later, she nudged Rhea awake again and presented her with a decently cooked steak that was only slightly burnt. The other one she cooked was much more burnt, so she decided to be generous and give Rhea the better one. Oh? Oh, for me. At Byleth's nod, Rhea genuinely smiled. Thank you, child. Mother was right, I should have had children of my own. I don't know what to say to that. Byleth just decided to sit with her slightly too tough steak. Did you want children? No, not really. I was terrified of the idea. Little creatures I would have to protect and safeguard from the horrors of the world. No, I could not. I did love Wilhelm though. If I could, I would have been with him. Yet, I did not, and I never found another man to love like him. She picked up the steak with her hand and tore into it with her teeth. Could be more burnt. Do you want mine? I am not going to steal food from children. It's your catch, you should eat it properly. I didn't, yeah, okay. Well, it wasn't bad. She was still a little upset that she couldn't cook as well as she used to though. Did she really let her skills deteriorate that badly? You know, I would not mind if you wished to regard me as a maternal figure. Well, that completely cut through what she was previously thinking about. Rhea nodded as though what she said wasn't completely insane. You are missing your mother, and I fully and completely understand how painful that can be. I, much like you, also tried to do ill-advised things to save those I loved, yet now that you are here, I can keep you from making my same mistakes. To begin, do not try to use the chalice of beginnings. It is a bad idea. I know that part already. Good, you are a quick learner. Secondly, do not make homunculi. You will make your mother very angry even if you do love all of them like daughters and each one of their deaths merely breaks your heart further. They would be your aunts, you know? Baal, Agars, Vasago, I should have tried harder for them. Done better than merely making person after person. What mother sacrifices her children for her own mother's sake? I had 12 of them and they are all dead now. She sighed, deeply. I really am a monster. You're not. Her answer came immediately. Rhea, you're not a monster. You truly are too kind to me, child. I am unworthy of being your mother. You could do far better. You will do far better. In finding a mother. Rhea nodded solemnly. I know you can do it. I believe in you, Byleth. You are better than I could ever be. Byleth felt herself swallow. I think I should get you to bed. Perhaps. Did you know Insurmountable slept on gold? What a nonsensical brother he was, the wistful, mopey drunk sighed, before pushing herself up from the table and almost immediately falling from the bunch, only stopped from hitting the floor by Byleth catching her. Oh. Ah, thank you, child. You are good. Byleth sighed, before adjusting her grip so she could more easily walk with Rhea. Okay. We can talk about this, later, I guess. I can guess as well, yes. Rhea nodded, before glancing around. Where did I leave my wine? I got that as a gift from that nice king. The dead one, not the murdered one. Wait, how many of them were murdered? They should not do that. Murder is bad. You should make that a rule now, no more murder. Humans like rules, they are very good at following them except when they are not. This was going to be a long walk. Craft Dragon, Fisher Dragon, gifted with a treasure flagon. Star Dragon, Ice Dragon, never left their rocking wagon. Apparently Rhea was also a singing drunk. Byleth would have been worried about her waking someone, but all the usual staff seemed to be fully asleep away from the main building, and while she did see a patrolling knight with a lantern in his hand, the armored man took one look at the blatantly drunk archbishop and walked in the other direction. Byleth would have cursed the man as a coward if she didn't fully understand his logic. He was still a dick for leaving carrying Rhea to her though. It didn't help that the archbishop was taller than her and basically leaning on her the whole way up to her room, which happened to be really high up in the stupid, whatever the main building was called. Byleth didn't remember at the moment, she was busy trying to carry a rambling drunk who was saying some things she really didn't want to think too much about. Kalpa Dragon, Aegis Dragon, never saw the stars again. Flame Dragon, Snow Dragon, from enemies to best of friends. Byleth muttered, though she paused because those weren't the words that came out of her mouth. In fact, now that she was thinking about it, Rhea wasn't actually speaking in the language of Fodlan. But she also understood her. No, not thinking about that, it's probably a Suthies thing, she said to herself, before continuing to tug Rhea along. Rhea asked, before making a sort of crooning noise and nuzzling her face against Byleth's head. It's not that much farther. Do not drop Rhea in the middle of the hallway. It isn't that much farther. Don't drop Rhea in the middle of the hallway, Byleth repeated as she reached the Archbishop's bedroom and pulled her inside. It was a little tricky actually maneuvering the taller woman over to the bed, but Byleth persevered and set her down on the covers. Though Rhea was being a little stubborn in letting go. Rhea, please. Let go. Ah, of course, my apologies. And she did let go with a soft smile. I apologize. I do not wish to be creepy. Well, you're not. You're kind of clingy, but, Byleth scratched at her head, trying to think of how to address the thing from earlier. I don't need a mom. I was fine without one. You can never have too many people that love you, child. It is so very lonely to be surrounded by those unlike you, who may never know the truth of your experiences, yet, perhaps if I had opened myself to them, I would not have felt lonely to begin with, she chuckled, softly, sitting on top of her bed. The past truly does leave us with the largest regrets. I know. I know that. Her eyes were so sad. You do. I am sorry. I am truly sorry you are cursed with the same knowledge as I. I truly have been an awful leader. Afraid to wield my power for good, yet willing to do harm for my own sense of safety. I have succeeded in my deepest desire, to bring my mother back to me, and she bears nothing but scorn for my work. What a fool I am, grasping for the sun and never looking where its rays did shine. Byleth's throat felt tight. You did what you could. I didn't. I just went with everything put in front of me, because I thought it was what I was meant to do. Obligation makes monsters as readily as desire. Perhaps even more so, for while desire rules the hearts of the callous, obligation may drag even the greatest into cruelty for its sake. Rhea's eyes focused onto Byleth's, a hint of strength returning to them. You are not a monster, Byleth. I have failed you, as I have failed many children. I have succeeded, and I have failed. And I have no further cause to continue in my place, knowing the price of my failures and the ends of my success. None of my means have been justified. This position should not be mine. If you wish, I will readily grant whatever you require. You bear no obligation to me. I would gladly call you family, if that is your wish. I would gladly call you Archbishop, should you wish it. And I would bow my head to you, Byleth, should you only ask. And then she did, her head bowing. Enlightened one. I apologize for the pain my folly has caused you. I can only pray you may one day forgive this unworthy soul. A part of Byleth really wished she could switch with Suthies right now. That she could just leave this to someone who would know what to say, but that part was small, drowned out by the part that moved forward and wrapped her arms around Rhea, hugging her as tightly as she could as tears leaked from her clenched eyes. It took a moment, but Rhea returned the hug, listening without judgment as the young woman cried in her arms. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Byleth stayed in Rhea's room that night. Not in the same bed, but choosing to sleep in a chair Rhea had. She wasn't sure why, no, she knew why. Despite all that had happened, a part of her did still care for Rhea, and while she had certainly made many mistakes, Byleth couldn't blame her for the actions she had yet to do. None of them, for that matter. Seath was not the man who had them avoid Gronderfield when the three nations clashed there. She should probably tell him she doesn't hold it against him anymore. Byleth got up from the chair and began to stretch once she felt awake enough, feeling stiff from having slept on the admittedly nice chair. She should have known not to sleep in a chair, but in her defense, the last time she did so was when she had stayed up late making a lesson plan early in the year. Not that it had helped much, the students were quite rowdy early on. Ferdinand kept arguing that dishonest tactics had no place on the battlefield whenever Byleth's lesson incorporated them, while Caspar was far more likely to suggest just rushing in head first. Lindhart paid the class no attention as he seemed far more interested in reading about crests, while Dorothea tried to bring Bernadetta into a conversation about the latest gossip she heard. Thinking about it for a moment, Byleth began to wonder. Yes, the students had managed to take in Bear, thanks to a mix of the Knights and Edelgard making Lynn's and Casper's fathers work for her, but, would they be prepared for war? These weren't students that had a full year to sharpen their skills and then a further 5 to grow stronger, these were students who had spent only a few months at the monastery. MRNG, why does my head hurt so much? Byleth heard Rhea say, bringing her out of her thoughts as the Archbishop awoke. I need to never drink so much again. Yeah, it was awkward carrying you up here, Byleth said, making the Immaculate One stiffen as she realized Byleth was there. See child, what are you doing here? I didn't think it was a good idea to leave you alone after you fell asleep. I see. Clearing her throat, she tried to smooth out her hair to try and seem presentable. I apologize if any of my ramblings caused you distress. It's okay, you were drunk so you weren't thinking. Putting on a smile, she tried to joke. I mean, you even offered me the position of Archbishop. Oh, did I already offer you that? My apologies, I had intended to do so when I had a clearer head. I imagine I didn't properly explain things while intoxicated. Rhea said, blushing a bit. I had been talking about it with your father and Seath, and I believe it would be best for you to take this position. Why? Byleth managed to squeak out. It is as Mother says, I spent far too long ignoring the atrocities in this land in the name of peace. Do you know what I felt when you didn't tell me about who started the war? I felt angry. I hid it well, but I thought that if we could simply finish those people before the war started then it would all be okay, but, war kills people, it does not kill ideals. Even if I were to stop this one, who's to say another worse one won't arise because of how I handled it? That doesn't explain why you think I should be Archbishop. Byleth, you are far kinder than you give yourself credit. I can tell you have a deep anger within you, but you're not letting it control you. You're not seeking to punish those who have wronged you, but to save those you love, no. But, would anyone even go along with this? I don't think anyone will just believe that some random mercenary is worthy of being the Archbishop. Why would they not? You hold the sword of the Creator, an ancient and powerful relic, you have received divine revelation from the goddess, if I'm not mistaken you should have the crest of flames, and, despite your ramblings of being my granddaughter, we do share some resemblance. She sent a sly smile her way. We could even say the reason Gerald went missing all those years ago was a mission I sent him on to make sure you were prepared for when it came time to assume my position. Byleth, didn't know how to reply to that. Mostly because, the idea actually appealed to her. And that was a scary thought. I don't know if I could. And that is fine. You do not need to spring forth, fully aware of the position and what it requires. We do have time, Byleth. And, unlike me, you will have someone here to guide you. If you would have me, of course. I don't think I'm okay with calling you my mother. Rhea blinked. I should not drink. That, ahem. I was thinking, rather, we say you are more like my niece. I did think of Citrai as a daughter, but I would not be sorry to claim her as a sister. Oh, that could work, Byleth frowned to herself, thinking. I'll need to know about how the structure of the church works. I never actually met those cardinal people, aside from when they started turning into monsters. That is understandable. The cardinals of the church largely keep to their duties in secret. What was that about them turning into monsters? Oh, right, I didn't get to that part. I think. Did I get to the part where you went insane and all of the people that shared your blood started turning into monsters? No. No, you did not get to that part. Byleth nodded. Don't get hit with the javelins of light, that's what did it. I don't think you were in control of yourself at all, and you were, kind of melting. In dragon form, I mean. I see. I said something weird again, didn't I? No, it was not weird, so much as horrifying. It is quite something to be told the details of your own painful demise. So, I probably should meet those cardinal people at some point. Yes, I will start making notes of what you should know to uphold the duties of the position. Rhea sighed, before smiling at Byleth. I promise, if this is what you want, I will do my utmost to ensure you are better prepared than I ever was. Byleth returned the smile. Thank you. Well, I should probably think about it more, but... You do not dislike the idea? Rhea asked, her smile taking on a slightly knowing quality. Right, I should get going. She paused at a sudden knock on the door. Rhea sighed. It is probably Seath. Would you mind? Oh, sure. She opened up the door for Rhea, though she found Catherine on the other side instead of Seath. Oh, hi. What are you doing in Lady Rhea's bedroom? Well, that tone was oddly hostile. I carried her up to her room because she was drunk in the dining hall. Then I just kind of slept here, I guess. Catherine's brow furrowed. You slept in the Archbishop's bed? No. I slept in the chair. It would be weird if I slept in her bed. She rubbed at her neck, trying to ease some of the stiffness still present there. Maybe I should have, it would have been more comfy. No. No, you shouldn't have. That tone was still very hostile. Well, yeah, I didn't. Like I said, it would be weird. Can you move now? You're kind of in the way. Is there a reason why you're dressed like an academy student? Oh yeah, she still had that outfit on. Yeah, my clothes were dirty yesterday, so I started wearing this instead. Catherine stepped closer. I don't know who you think you're fooling. I'm being honest. I'm also not interested in Rhea. She's nice, I guess, and kind of soft, but she also wants to be my mom, so, yeah. I am soft. Rhea suddenly asked from the bed, peeking over at the two of them. Oh, hello Catherine. Well, yeah. Byleth attempted to explain, before just shaking her head and simply shoving Catherine to the side. Hey. You can't just... Catherine blinked, before looking around in some confusion after Byleth suddenly vanished. What the? Catherine, am I soft? Rhea asked from the bed, where she appeared to be feeling at her stomach, her frown deepening when she found some pudge there. Your silence is all the answer I require. The Archbishop nodded to herself, before getting up from the bed and facing Catherine. Would you be willing to train me? This is the happiest day of my life. What? Nothing. Check the description for the links to the author.